Hello, everybody. Welcome to Subconscious Sundays with Tim and April. I am one of your co hosts. I am Reverend April Kling Meyer here with my bestie, lifelong time, Mr. Timothy Daniel Freeman. Hello, Timothy.
Hi, welcome everybody.
Welcome. So, every time we start an episode here, we like to go through a few of our little guidelines. We really feel that it's important to talk about things in a laid back, fun, and entertaining way to discuss potentially serious and heavy topics. And we want to
Yeah,
keep it open and inviting.
yeah, definitely. And today's topic is one that comes with some, I don't want to say baggage, but maybe I do want to say baggage.
Oh, say baggage.
So this is really also intended to be a weekly kind of ritual for all of us to gather and gather in a virtual sacred space here and discuss how we work with the subconscious mind and some issues around that.
Right. And we have essentially four core values: being respectful of one's own individual journey, staying rooted in compassion for ourselves and others, promoting growth and expansion, and creating this supportive community. We wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have an audience, and that's you. So thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you. And then rooted in compassion for self and others. That's gonna be important for today.
Definitely. Our topic today is working with the subconscious in forgiveness and atonement. And really, I think the bulk of the work of talking about forgiveness in these capacities is talking to people about what we mean when we say forgiveness, because lots of people define forgiveness in different ways. So, in the act of defining forgiveness, I truly feel that we get to the core of what it is to forgive, and it's really kind of part of the process. And the brilliant thing is that no matter how we define forgiveness, you can define it for yourself. But today, Tim and I are going to define what we mean for forgiveness in this particular context so that you can follow along with the conversation. And we will keep an eye on the chat as best as we can. So if you have anything to comment or ask, we want you to completely feel free to go into the conversation and leave us a comment. We will see it and we'll probably put it up on the screen and talk about it. But I front loaded this whole conversation today with a question on my Facebook page. How do people define forgiveness? What does forgiveness mean to you? And I got a lot of really interesting answers. So the first one was Nina says, letting go of resentment for those who have done you wrong, which I think is a pretty strong way to start off. Definitely a theme of letting go here. Claudia, who some of you viewers will recognize the name, that's my mom. She says, letting go, definitely a process similar to grief. And I definitely wanted to include this one because not only is Claudia somebody who's had to forgive me over and over again throughout my life, and I suppose I've had to forgive her too for some things, but the fact that she points out that it's a process is really important here. That process can be nonlinear, it can have no beginning and no end. So, bearing that in mind and definitely wanting to include that in our definition today. The next one is somebody who Tim will find familiar. And we really wanted to bring up Jill's definition of forgiveness here because it's important to bring up in this conversation. I like to refer to something as I call weaponized forgiveness, which is a forgiveness that's coerced or demanded out of you and for the sake of the person who harmed you. This is often done in really kind of faith-based situations or family situations where somebody who harms you, even gravely harms you, tends to be somebody that retains power in the dynamic of the family or the faith-based or religious or organization or even a workplace. And you are forced to forgive them in order to made feel like everything's okay, make everybody more comfortable but yourself. That's not at all the type of of forgiveness we want to talk about today. And I do want to point out what Jill said, though, because it's actually quite important to note that this is um, how that can look. She said, Jill says, I hate the concept of forgiveness of others for the wholeness of self, because this is another type of weaponized forgiveness in the spirituality space, is that we say that, like, you can't move on with your life until you forgive and things like that. But that can be true for some people. Some people do have a hard time moving on with their lives if they don't forgive. But the idea of it being intrinsic to the wholeness of the self, that is pretty, uh, that's a pretty limiting belief, if I may put it so. Putting any kind of gatekeeping on wholeness is really kind of the opposite direction of where Tim and I would like to go in this conversation. But she says, forgiveness is required for continued relationship and communion to maintain peace. And then she says, if continued relationship and communion are not desired or necessary, neither is forgiveness. And that is one way to define forgiveness, like the continuation of relationship hinging upon it. Yeah, that's probably one layer of forgiveness, I would say. But it's definitely, when we're talking about it in this concept, when we're talking about it bringing in the subconscious into the idea of forgiveness, we're talking about a forgiveness that kind of goes beyond the whole day-to-day interactions with people or wanting to maintain a relationship. We're talking about something that's happening on somewhat of a different plane, if you will, like the plane of emotion, or the plane of spirit, or the plane of the subconscious. That peace of mind, that letting go that we talked about in the beginning. Heather says something kind of similar. When the need to self-protect from someone becomes irrelevant, forgiveness automatically happens. So that is another layer of this. Like, when we no longer feel like this person can harm us or will harm us, we're able to forgive them, and that's probably going to make things a lot easier. Um, Kat brings another dimension to this by saying, for me, it's a response to someone being truly sorry for what they did, not just feeling guilty about it and wanting to feel less guilty. I'm going to talk about this particular one a little bit more when I talk about atonement, but we really wanted to bring this up because of what Tim's going to bring in the hypnosis here in just a moment. But this this level of forgiveness requires the other person's participation. And I think I want to bring in to the way we're defining forgiveness is that the way Tim and I are working with the definition of forgiveness today is that it doesn't require the participation of someone else. It doesn't require somebody's apology. It doesn't require somebody's readiness, somebody's ability to change, somebody's demonstration of how they're going to be different, or even be less harmful to you. So we're going to talk about what that kind of forgiveness could look like. And it's a
Yeah,
bit
and
different.
it really has nothing to do with the offender. It really has
Right.
everything to do with the feelings that you hold inside your subconscious mind about what happened.
Exactly. So we have a favorite on the definitions of forgiveness, and that's going to be our dear old friend Christy. And we both were just like, Christy's nailing it as far as the way we're going to be talking about it today. Again, everyone can define forgiveness for themselves the way that they should, but the way that Christy defines it really is kind of on target for the way we're going to deal with it today. And that is, just because you forgave someone doesn't mean it excuses what they did. It just means I'm going to close the book on what happened or the chapter of my life they were in and try to move on and heal. And then she goes on to say, I also think it's not about forgetting what about what happened, but learning from what happened to be able to protect yourself from it happening again. And then going back to what Kat said about feeling guilty and wanting to feel less guilty, that tends to be a good, like, when we direct that ourselves, that tends to be how people think of atonement, wanting to feel less guilty. And that certainly is a layer of it. But atonement, how I like to define it, we'll get to that in a second. But my teacher, my seminary teacher, Nicholas, she describes it as at oneness. And if you look at the word atone, it's at one or at one ment. So I thought that was really a beautiful way of artistically defining atonement. But the way that I define atonement is truly the forgiveness of the self, and not in the interest of wanting to feel less guilty, but just as Christy describes, the idea of being able to close the chapter, take the lessons, and move on with life. And this definitely does not require anybody else's opinions, participation, or permission. No one else is urging. There's no gatekeeping here. There's no heaven we're saying that you have to forgive in order to get into. We're really kind of suggesting here with the way that we're going to deal with it today is that it's a process that you decide that you're ready for. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my beautiful, wonderful friend Tim, because he has something delicious prepared for us today in meditation. And I'm sure he has a few things to add to what we've just talked about.
Yeah, sure. Well, I kind of want to just jump to the comments for just a moment here because thanks you guys for putting some great comments in here. I uh, I think there's a lot of kind of moral obligation tied up in this, which we're kind of touched on a little bit. It's like people feel like they have to forgive to be a good person. And then if they're not ready to actually do that, if they're kind of, giving it lip service because they feel like they have to, it's what I've recently encountered as called toxic forgiveness. And and if you're not quite ready for that, then and you kind of give it some lip service there, it can that resentment, that feeling of unfairness, that anger that's inside of you can seep out in ways in your life. And another another thing I just wanted to mention here too, just in regard to Jill's statement about forgiveness and hating the idea of forgiveness.
Which is
So
valid, totally
it is
valid.
valid. It is valid because there's bad things that happen in the world. People do horrible things to other people. And it's not about forgetting. Again, I just want to reiterate, it's not about forgive and forget. That's not wise. A wiser approach to forgiveness would be to look at how those feelings of unfairness and anger are affecting you in your life. And if they are having a negative effect on your life, then it might be a good idea to look at that a little further from the perspective of the subconscious mind. Because if our conscious mind could figure this out, it would have. And that's
Yeah.
when we get this, when we feel like we have to forgive. That's from the level of the conscious mind. It's not satisfying that need in the subconscious mind to resolve
I'm glad
that
you said the
unfairness
word.
or anger.
Yeah, I'm glad you said the word need too, because sometimes forgiveness arises from one's own need to forgive. Like there comes a point in your life where you feel like you need to let go, like you can't move on. I think that we definitely can refer to this as feeling stuck in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of talk in the creativity and spirituality circles. The way those things intersect is feeling stuck creatively may be something to do with feeling stuck spiritually. And one of the ways you can be stuck spiritually is by not being able to forgive. And when you get into a situation where your conscious mind is not able to help you with this process, I feel, and Tim definitely feels, that working with that intimate subconscious relationship can kind of be jet fuel into this process and help you make connections faster and derive lessons from it much quicker.
Yeah, agreed. And thank you, James, too, in the comments here. He says, I think forgiveness is something about acceptance, about self-compassion, as self-forgiveness is an ongoing process, especially when we can be so hard on ourselves. Exactly.
Right, right.
We might find it hardest to forgive ourselves. So let's dive right into
Oh, yeah.
hypnosis meditation here. I want everybody to just get comfortable. Uh, Go ahead and find a spot where you can sit with your spine straight, uncrossed legs, uncrossed arms. And for now, I would just like you to just go ahead and close your eyes and just kind of settle into the space you're at. And I want to say a few more words here about forgiveness before we begin. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron said something along the lines of compassion for others begins with kindness to ourselves. So, with a nod to James here, we're going to do a short hypnotic meditation to help us cultivate our compassion for ourselves first. So, as you're sitting and you're settling into the place wherever you are, I'd just like you to bring your awareness to the feeling of the surface beneath you and how it's supporting you there. And now, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and open your eyes and find a spot on the wall above your natural eye gaze. It's going to be something like this. I'd like you to take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, I'd like you to look through that spot. You might start to notice the corners of the room. Go ahead and close your eyes. You might start to feel a sense of spaciousness all around you. Now, relax your jaw. You might find there's just some little bit of holding in your jaw. Just go ahead and relax your jaw. Just let it fall open slightly. And I'd like you to gradually slow down your rate of breathing. Nice, deep inhalation, relaxed, and a really long exhalation. Good. And now I'd like for you to relax the back of your tongue. Just let your tongue lay rested in your mouth. And whatever this means to you, I'd now like for you to drop your consciousness into your heart. Whatever that means to you. You might get a sense of that feeling of spaciousness all around you. Good. And as you relax even further in this moment, know that you're safe and secure, breathing slowly and comfortably. Take your attention to that feeling of the surface beneath you, supporting you. And now take your attention to that, once again, to that feeling of spaciousness all around you. Good. And now I'd like you to notice, I'd like you to imagine with the power of your mind that you are in a round room, a completely round room. In fact, even the ceiling is round. It's a domed ceiling. And you might notice a few things in the room, but right in front of you, you see an empty chair. And in a moment, I'm going to have you take in a deep breath. Go ahead and take in that deep breath now. And as you exhale, feeling safe in this round room, I'd like you to think of a time in your life where you did something unfair to someone else. Doesn't need to be anything big. It's not some big offense. It's just something that you did that you feel was unfair to someone else. And we might call this a feeling of guilt. Nothing too big here, just something that you've done. We all do something at some point that is unfair to someone else, or we feel it was unfair to someone else. Just go ahead and bring up that feeling now. Maybe it's guilt, be a little twinge of guilt. Maybe you wish you had not done that thing. And as your attention focuses on that feeling inside of you, if that feeling had a color, what would that color be? Just imagine that now. And you imagine the chair in the round room right in front of you starts to become imbued with that color that represents the feeling inside of you right now. And as that color becomes more and more vivid, you're focusing on that feeling inside of you right now. And I want you to take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, I want you to just let go of that feeling inside of you right now. And you notice that there's now someone in that chair in front of you, and it's you. It's as if you're looking into a full length mirror. It's you at that time. You did that thing that you feel was unfair. And I want you to see yourself right now at that time, in that space. What was going on in your life at that time? We all have heard, or maybe everyone has heard, that the words hurt people hurt people. So I just want you to notice right now that when you did something that you feel was unfair, what was going on in your life at that time? Oftentimes, we are acting in ways to protect ourselves. How are you trying to protect yourself in that moment? Just imagine what you were doing at the time, what life was like. You might see yourself in that chair a little younger than you are now. Maybe it was 3 days ago, maybe it was 5 years ago. Just think about now what was going on in your life at that time. Now, I'd like for you to stand up, go over to that chair in front of you, to your younger self. And I'd like for you right now to just give that younger self a hug and just sit there with that younger self. And now there's something inside of you right now that needs to be said, something that you can say to your younger self in that moment with everything that was going on at that time that helps them to understand how what they did might have just been trying to protect themselves in some way. Go ahead and say what you might need to say right now to your younger self. Whatever comes up, and take just a moment. Keep your breathing slow and steady. I'm going to give you a moment of silence to sit with that younger self. You understand what they're going through at the time. And as your awareness comes back to my voice, I'd like you to once again take in a deep breath. And as you exhale, I want you to exhale that color that represents that feeling inside of you, that guilty feeling. Just breathe all of that color out now. And as you take in another deep breath, you might feel a sense of lightness. Once again, your focus comes to that sense of spaciousness all around you. And you're here in that round room. The awareness of your younger self fades. Now it's just you in this round room, feeling that sense of lightness. And this is the first step to forgiving yourself for something you feel like you might have done that's unfair to someone else. Just a little exercise to cultivate some compassion towards yourself and a deeper understanding that you might have just been trying to protect some aspect of yourself. We're not putting right or wrong on this right now. But once again, take your attention to that feeling of lightness, that lightness of being. And if there's any part of your body that wants to relax even further right now, just let go, let it relax, and let that feeling of lightness infuse every nerve, muscle, and cell of your being as you relax deeper into the surface beneath you. Just bask in that feeling of lightness. And in a moment, I'm going to count to 3. And when I get to 3, I'd like you to open your eyes. 1, feeling light, free, a sense of lightness, and a little bit more peace. 2, your awareness now comes to the feeling of that surface beneath you, still feeling that feeling of lightness all around you. And 3, open your eyes. Thanks for joining me for that little hypnotic exercise. Of course, this is a process, as James pointed out. If there are difficult feelings that you have around something that somebody did to you, maybe you're angry about that, or something you did to someone else, maybe you're feeling guilty about that, just allow yourself to focus back in. Just remember that sense of lightness that you experienced in the hypnotic meditation. Take a few deep breaths and know that most likely you're just trying to do something to protect some aspect of your life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim. And remember, both the forgiveness and atonement processes don't require the participation of anybody else unless you are working with a hypnotist, or a spiritual guide or counselor. You don't have to involve anybody you've hurt, and you don't have to involve anybody who hurt you. It is truly something I refer to as sacred selfishness. It is something that you do entirely and completely for yourself when you atone and when you forgive. And you can even bring the creative process into the forgiveness and atonement process by expressing difficult emotions through art or writing, or through any type of way that you like to express yourself, like dance. And you can even do a very traditional old exercise of writing a letter to your younger self or to someone who's hurt you or who you've hurt, and burning that letter safely in an environment where you can safely burn, like in your fireplace. So we have some comments I wanted to share. It looked like Bear is joining us again this week. Thank you so much for being with us again. We love our loyal viewers, and it's been such a short period of time that we've been able to come onto the show with you all live, but we love that we're already seeing familiar faces, because to us this community is such an enormous part of why we're doing this. And I also wanted to share that Christelle said thank you, and that the hypnosis was beautiful, Tim. So you've got a fan for sure, another fan. And as always, Tim and I are both available to assist you through the difficulties of these processes, to help you define them for yourselves and process them the way that you prefer to. I'm available to talk to you about your spiritual and creative needs through counseling and creative therapies. And Tim is available as well. We always make sure that the links to book time with us are in the description of the video during the live, as well as after the live in the replay. So go check the descriptions of this video if you're feeling particularly called to work with either one of us. We are both quite available to do so. And I want to close with a prayer that I learned in seminary. That's a very old prayer. I'm glad that you brought up Pema Chodron, the Buddhist nun, because this is a Buddhist prayer, and it's called the Metta prayer. It's very simple, and it goes like this. We're going to go through it 3 times. And the first time that we go through it, I want you to think of somebody that you just kind of feel like a little like loving, beautiful feelings about. And then the second time we go through it, I want you to think of somebody you feel kind of just whatever about, like no, not really good, not really bad feelings about. And then the third time we go through it, I want you to think of someone that you are having some difficulty forgiving, or somebody that you're having guilty feelings about. So let's do that together. This is the metta prayer, and it has lots of different versions, but this is the version that I want to share with you today. And it goes, may they dwell in the heart. May they be free from suffering. May they be healed. May they be at peace. And now for somebody you feel neutral about. May they dwell in the heart. May they be free from suffering. May they be healed. May they be at peace. And now for somebody that it's a little bit more difficult to pray for the third time over. We'll do this together. May they dwell in their heart. May they be free from suffering. May they be healed. May they be at peace. And one more time, just for all of us together. And I'll put Tim back on the screen. May we dwell in the heart. May we be free of suffering. May we be healed. May we be at peace. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you actually, we won't see you next week. We're taking a week off. Tim will be traveling and doing some training, training other people actually on how to do hypnosis. Is that right?
Well, I'll be facilitating a hypnosis training. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. And I myself will be gearing up for some traveling. And the next time we see you will be the 30th. We'll be coming to you live, myself from Edinburgh, Scotland, actually. And Tim will be in Hawaii as usual. But we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us.